Hello everyone, welcome to another session on methodology of literature. This is lecture number 2 of the session on introduction to Canadian literature. Okay, so previous session we were discussing about the history of Canada and some writers of the Canadian literature. This is a continuation to that. So let's go to the lecture. We'll quickly go through some important writers. We are not that familiar with all the mainstream writers from Canada, but some names are very important. You don't have to get into the detail of every writer. So one such name that you cannot forget is that of Alice Munro. This basically she belongs to the modern period. Okay, but three names you cannot forget from Canada. So that I'll first introduce those three names, and then later we'll quickly go through the other important names from your textbook. Okay, so one is Alice Munro. Most of her works are famous, especially The Life of Girls and Women, which came in the 1971. And also you can say another important writer is Margaret Lawrence. Her work The Stone Angel, a very important work, The Stone Angel. Both of them in fact talks about the heroines they're rebelling against. So another prominent writer is Margaret Lawrence. Okay, her work The Stone Angel is very popular work. Okay, it has in fact explored these two works of Alice Munro and of Margaret Lawrence. It explored the heroines' rebellion against the the small town heritage, or you can say that small world view. Okay. So then we have Margaret Atwood, a very prominent contemporary writer, and she talked about the urban politics, or you can say the urban life and the sexual politics. Okay, her famous writings are The Handmaid's Tale, which came in the year 1985, and another prominent work which came in the year 2000 is The Blind Assassin, for which she won the Booker Prize, and it talks about the ambiguous nature of truth and justice. Okay, so this is another important work. Then you can see, like when we go as a whole about the Canadian tradition. You can see other prominent writers like Susan Moody, another writer who was very prominent in 1852, that period. Okay. Then we have Catherine Parr Traill, talks about the backwoods of Canada. Okay, so one trend that you can see, as we have seen in the early writings, early English writings from Canada, as documentary type of writing. Another trend that you can see in the 19th century literary tradition, especially English literary tradition of Canada, is that they were basically personal writing. Okay. Then another important writer, Canadian, who talked about Canadian literary anthology, you can say, is Thomas Candler's Halliburton, another important writer. Then he has in fact created a comic character like Sam Slick. You don't have to get to the details of that, but you can say, like it's a very important poet. Then, as I've told you earlier, the Confederation poets are very important. Okay, then we have Gilbert Parker, 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 The Seeds of the Mighty. That's a very important work from Canada. Then from the 20th century, the beginning of 20th century, you can say, just like to America, there is a migration from different European nations to Canada also. So there is a conflict. This particular period we call in Canadian history as literary history as modern period, and in this phase you can see there is a conflict between tradition and modernity. So some of the writers who in fact came from Europe, they were more or less modern. Okay, and those who were in Canada, there were kind of in a conflict, okay, in their writings. So one name you can remember from this side is Stephen Leacock and his nonsense novels, which came in the year 1911. It's a very important work. Okay, then we have the inspired by Artists Union. There was a group of seven, the group of seven, which was typically Canadian movement in painting. The Montreal group emphasized the fragmentation, alienation, and urban sophistication as exemplified in their 1936 anthology New Provinces. Very important work from Canada. It is in fact from the group of seven. That is the how that particular movement was called, and they have come up with an anthology in the year 1936, which was edited by E.J. Pratt, and that particular anthology was titled New Provinces. Okay, then we have Mavis Gallant, an important writer. Then Alistair MacLeod, Alistair, Alistair MacLeod, Macload. Okay, MacLeod. Then we have Clark Blaze. Okay, so they were typically following more or less you can say a composite narrative. Another trend that you can see in Canada, they talked about bilingual text. Then there is a kind of a fiction mix of fiction and drama. Then discontinuous narratives in fiction and poetry. These are like the general trend you can see in their writings. Okay, then you have writers like Leonard Cohen, 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 and Robert Kroetsch, Kroetsch. They talked about ecology, class experience. Then along with Margaret Atwood, you can see feminism, then faith, nationalism. All these things you can see that is getting reflected in their poetry. Okay, so you can say in general, by 20th century, there is a kind of a multiculturalism in Canadian literature, especially because there were large-scale immigrants from all parts of the world to America. So that's central to the post-colonial phase of literature, where you have all these Asians like Mikhail Ondaatje, his work English Patient, a very important work. Then another important figure from Canada is Rohinton Mystery. Okay, very important phase. So this is again part of the multiculturalist tradition of Canada. Okay, so those names also you have to remember. So with that you can almost conclude the Canadian literary tradition. Okay, we have writers like Alice Munro, we have Margaret Atwood, then we have Alistair MacLeod, Margaret Lawrence, then Mikhail Ondaatje, and Rohinton Mystery. These are the prominent names you can say from Canada. Okay, thank you and God bless.